My granddaughter leaned in like she was sharing a secret that could crack the world. "Grandma, I heard Mommy and Daddy saying they are sending you away today and taking your money." I kept my smile soft for her sake, while something fierce and bright woke up inside me, like steel catching sunlight after a storm. Sophie is 9, with ink smudges on her fingers and a habit of telling the truth, even when it trembles. She sat at the kitchen table coloring while the stew simmered. I stirred, nodded, and felt the old rhythm of my heartbeat move from grief to purpose. Henry used to say I had a good read on the weather and on people. He is gone now, but the forecast he taught me was still true. A change in pressure means a change in plan. 18 months ago, after the funeral, my son Caleb arrived with takeout and a script. "Mom, you should not be alone. Come stay with us." Vanessa smiled like a hostess. Warm plates, warmer promises. I sold the cottage Henry and I built board by board and handed over the proceeds to help with debts. They called it family. I called it love. I did not have the words for what it became. Love turned into errands and pickups and bedtime stories, while my name paid the utility bills. Invitations from friends stopped coming. Vanessa said she told them I needed rest. Caleb set up my phone so he could help with apps. Somehow every password led first through him. They called me generous when I covered car insurance and groceries. They called me forgetful when I asked to see the statements. This morning the house was too quiet after their cheerful exit. They said they had errands. They asked me to keep an eye on Sophie. I looked at my purse, where my documents lived now, like a small traveling office. Widow instinct. Call it the habit of a woman who has learned to carry her life. I washed my hands, dried them on the towel Henry once used when he baked on Sundays, and sat beside Sophie. "Sweetheart, I need you to put your shoes on. We are going to meet an old friend of mine." She asked if it would be boring. "Only for the people who count chickens before they hatch," I said. I stepped onto the porch, called Robert Kane, and heard my voice settle. "Robert, it is Margaret. I need to see you today. 2 o'clock. He asked if I was safe. I looked at my granddaughter through the screen door and decided I was about to be. I took her hand, and we walked toward the corner coffee shop. Grief makes you blind. I see that now as clearly as the mountains outside the kitchen window. After Henry's death, Caleb's voice had been soft, almost reverent. "Mom, the cottage is too much for you. You should sell while the market is hot. We'll help you settle in with us." At the time, I thought it was concern. Looking back, it was the start of the net they would weave around me. The sale of my cottage brought in $580,000, money Henry and I had saved for our quiet years. I remember Vanessa's face the day I told them. Her eyes lit like sparklers, though she quickly covered it with sympathy. "Oh, Margaret, you'll never have to worry again." What she meant was, we won't have to worry again. Within weeks, my check had vanished into their mortgage and debts. I told myself it was family, helping family. But every time I asked for the paperwork, Caleb brushed me off. "Don't trouble yourself, Mom. We're handling it." At first, living with them felt like a comfort. Sophie's laughter filled the evenings. But soon the requests began. "Could you pick her up from school, Mom? We're both swamped. Could you watch her while we go out? Could you cover the groceries until payday?" Always small, reasonable favors, until they weren't. Then came the isolation. My church friends called, but somehow never reached me. Later, I learned Vanessa told them I was resting. Too fragile for company. The book club I loved kept meeting, but I stopped getting reminders. Caleb sighed when I mentioned it. "You've been forgetting things, Mom. Better to slow down." I wasn't forgetting. They were erasing. And always the guilt. Every time I wondered aloud about finding a small apartment of my own. Caleb's voice turned sharp with hurt. "Mom, Sophie needs you. You're her rock. Besides, why waste money on rent when we have space here?" Vanessa would add her own sweet blade. "You're such a blessing, Margaret. Sophie is thriving because of you." It sounded like gratitude. It felt like chains. The pattern was clear, only in hindsight. Keep me busy, keep me useful, keep me paying. I became the unpaid nanny, the invisible maid, the silent account. They cloaked their greed in family ties and called it love. But Sophie's whisper at the table had ripped the cloth wide open. I sat that afternoon staring at the framed photo of Henry in his fishing hat. He'd worked 30 years at the library with me saving every penny. He trusted me to guard what we built. Caleb and Vanessa thought they could strip it away. They thought they had me cornered, but they forgot something crucial. I wasn't weak, I wasn't alone, and I wasn't finished yet. The bell above the coffee shop door jingled as Sophie and I stepped inside. She tugged at my hand, her eyes darting to the glass case of muffins. I promised her one after our meeting. For now, I led her toward the corner booth where Robert Kane was already waiting. Robert had been my classmate in high school, the boy who carried too many books and never missed a debate. Now he wore a tailored gray suit and the calm expression of a man who had spent decades untangling other people's messes. He rose when he saw me, his brows knitting at the tension on my face. "Maggie," he said softly, the name only a few old friends still used. "What's happened?" I slid into the booth, keeping my voice even, though my chest burned. "My son and his wife are planning to put me into a home today. They think I'm helpless. What they don't realize is I still know how to fight." Robert didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled a leather folio from his briefcase and clicked his pen. "Tell me everything." As Sophie colored on the napkin with crayons from her pocket, I poured out the story, the cottage money, the mounting control, the whispered plan to seize what Henry and I had built. Robert's face darkened with each detail. Finally, he nodded. "We'll make this simple. You'll revoke the power of attorney Caleb has. That alone strips them of any legal authority. Then we set up a new will. If you want Sophie protected, we'll place your estate in trust for her until she's 25. And we'll move every cent of your savings to an account they can't touch." For the first time in months, I felt oxygen fill my lungs without weight. "Can it be done today?" Robert gave a small smile. "It will be done before they finish their errands." At his office, Sophie settled happily in the playroom with a stack of blocks, while Robert slid documents across his mahogany desk. The papers seemed to glow under the lamp, each one a shield turning into a sword. I signed with deliberate strokes, my hand steady. With each signature, I felt the invisible chains loosen. "Margaret," Robert said, as he gathered the signed pages, "you've taken back control. By the time you serve dinner tonight, Caleb and Vanessa will be facing an entirely different reality." I stood smoothing my skirt, a current of strength rising in me. They thought they had written my ending. What they didn't realize was that I had just picked up the pen. When Sophie skipped back into the office, clutching her new tower of blocks, I bent down and kissed her hair. "Ready, sweetheart?" I whispered. She nodded, and together we stepped back into the Colorado sun, carrying more power than they would ever expect. By the time we reached First Rocky Bank, the autumn sky had turned a hard blue, sharp with mountain air. Sophie skipped ahead, holding the door open like a proud little hostess. Inside, the familiar scent of polished wood and printer ink wrapped around me. I had been a customer there for 40 years, and today, that loyalty would save me. The branch manager, Clara Jensen, met me with a professional smile that faltered when she saw my expression. "Mrs. Ellis," she said, gesturing toward her office, "what can we do for you?" I settled into the chair across from her desk. "Clara, I need to transfer every account I hold here, checking, savings, certificates of deposit, into a new bank across town. Effective immediately." Her pen froze mid-scratch. "All of it? That's highly unusual." I folded my hands on the desk, letting silence stretch just long enough for her to sense the gravity. "Yes, all of it." Today, Clara's fingers began tapping across her keyboard. Numbers rolled onto the screen, and I saw her eyes widen. "Mrs. Ellis, you're talking about $652,000. Are you absolutely sure?" I thought of Caleb's nervous smile that morning, Vanessa's too tight hug, the way Sophie's small voice had trembled with truth. My decision crystallized like ice on the riverbank. "I've never been more sure of anything." Clara cleared her throat, gathered the paperwork, and slid it across to me. The forms looked almost ceremonial, like declarations of independence. With each signature, I imagined chains falling away, one by one. In the waiting area, Sophie sat happily with a lollipop the teller had given her. Oblivious to the storm her words had set in motion. I watched her swing her feet and thought, this child may have saved me. She may have saved herself too. When Clara finally handed me the confirmation slip, her voice was hushed. The funds will be in your newcomer's bank account by close of business. No one but you will have access. Good, I said, tucking the slip into my purse beside Henry's old watch. Because some people were counting chickens that never belonged to them. As Sophie and I stepped back onto the street, a strange calm washed over me. The trap was set. Tonight, while Caleb and Vanessa thought they were leading me to Shady Oaks, they would instead walk straight into their own undoing. Back home, I tied on my apron and began chopping onions for beef stew. The house filled with warm, rich fragrance. If this was to be my last meal under their roof, it would be memorable. I wanted the stage perfectly set, every detail sharpened, because when the curtain rose, the performance would belong to me. By the time the stew had thickened and the cornbread was golden, headlights swept across the driveway. I wiped my hands on my apron, heart steady as a metronome. Sophie darted from her room, excitement lighting her face. "They're home, Grandma," she whispered. The front door opened with a cheerful clatter. "Mom, something smells amazing," Caleb called. His voice was too loud, too bright, the way people sound when they're hiding something. Vanessa followed, her smile polished but brittle. I ladled stew into bowls and set the bread basket in the center of the table. "Just your favorite," I said softly, meeting their eyes with a calmness they didn't understand. Sophie chattered about school, her innocent voice filling the silence that clung like fog around the table. Halfway through dinner, Caleb cleared his throat. "Mom, we need to talk." His spoon clinked against the bowl as he set it down. "Vanessa and I have been thinking about your future." Vanessa leaned forward, her tone sugary. "There's a wonderful community called Aspen Gardens. Activities, medical staff, friends your own age. We visited today." I cut a piece of bread, buttering it slowly. "So soon?" "Interesting timing," I murmured. They exchanged a quick glance. Caleb pressed on. "We just want what's best for you. You've given up so much and, well, it might be easier for everyone if you had more care." I dabbed my lips with a napkin. "That's thoughtful. So, funny thing though, I spent today exploring some options of my own." Their smiles faltered. "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, her fork poised midair. The doorbell rang. I rose smoothly. "Why don't I let my friend explain?" When I opened the door, Robert Kane stepped inside, briefcase in hand. His expression was grave, but his eyes flicked to mine with reassurance. He followed me into the living room, where Caleb and Vanessa sat rigid on the couch. Robert settled into the armchair. "Good evening. I believe we have some matters to discuss." He opened his briefcase, drawing out a folder thick with documents. Caleb's voice cracked. "What is this?" I sat in my favorite chair by the window, folding my hands. "It's business, sweetheart. The kind you thought I wouldn't notice." Robert adjusted his glasses. "As of this afternoon, your mother has revoked the power of attorney you were relying on. You no longer have any legal authority over her affairs." Vanessa's face drained of color. Caleb sputtered, "That's not— Mom, why would you—" I leaned forward, my voice quiet but razor sharp, "Because I know about Shady Oaks. And I know about the money. You thought tonight would end with me powerless, but instead, it ends with me free." Upstairs, Sophie's laughter drifted down the hall, a bright reminder of who this battle was truly for. The living room felt colder after Robert snapped his briefcase shut. Caleb slumped into the couch, as if the cushions might swallow him. Vanessa clutched her knees, whispering something I could not hear. I thought the storm was over. I thought the papers were enough. But predators rarely retreat after the first strike. 2 days later, Robert called with a clipped tone. "Maggie, they've hired counsel. Aggressive counsel. Their first move is to petition for a psychiatric evaluation. I nearly laughed. They want to prove I'm incompetent? They're desperate, Robert said. But you'll pass without issue. Just prepare yourself at Dr. Franklin's office. I answered every question with precision. I recited details of dates, bank transfers, even recipes Henry and I had perfected. After 2 hours, the doctor smiled gently. Mrs. Ellis, your mind is sharper than many people half your age. You have nothing to worry about. I left the appointment buoyed by relief. But Robert's next call cut through like a blade. There's more, Maggie. I pulled Henry's old files. He had another life insurance policy, one worth $1.5 million. My heart pounded. I only received $750,000. Where's the rest? Robert hesitated. The other half was paid out to a woman named Evelyn Cross. The name hit me like an echo from a life I thought I knew. Evelyn, Henry's former colleague at the Historical Society, a woman who always lingered too long at staff parties. But Henry never told me. My voice broke. Robert continued. The payout records show she received $750,000. But according to the policy, you were supposed to receive the same, yet only $400,000 reached your account. Someone intercepted the difference. I sank into my chair, nausea rising. Caleb, I whispered. He handled all the paperwork after the funeral. Robert's tone was grim. I believe he forged documents, redirected funds, and lied to you about the total value. The betrayal twisted deeper. Not only had my husband hidden another policy with a woman I barely knew, but my own son had stolen nearly $500,000 from me while I was drowning in grief. That evening, I found Evelyn's number. She answered after the third ring, her voice cautious. When I explained who I was, there was a sharp intake of breath. Margaret, I had no idea you never received your full share. Caleb told me you were aware. He said you agreed it was better this way. The pieces clicked like a lock snapping shut. Caleb had deceived both of us. I ended the call with trembling hands, but a steady voice. Thank you, Evelyn. It seems we've both been played. Now it's time he learns what it feels like. The next morning, I pressed my palms flat against the cool granite counter, staring at my reflection in the kitchen window. My son had stolen from me, lied to me, and tried to erase me. The grief sat heavy, but underneath it, something harder gleamed. Resolve. I called Caleb. My voice was calm, measured. Lunch today, Giovanni's downtown, noon. Don't be late. He stammered. Mom, I don't think. I wasn't asking, I said, and hung up. The restaurant buzzed with chatter when I walked in. Caleb was already seated, shoulders hunched, eyes darting around the room. He looked like a man waiting for a verdict. I slid into the booth opposite him, ordered iced tea, and smiled like we were just another mother and son catching up. For a few minutes we spoke of nothing. The weather, Sophie's grades, trivial nonsense that clinked like glass over stone. Then I leaned in. I had the most fascinating conversation with Evelyn Cross yesterday. Caleb froze. His fork slipped, clattering against his plate. She showed me her payout documents. $750,000, which means, my dear boy, I should have received the same. But somehow only $400,000 reached my account. Care to explain the missing $350? His face drained of color. Mom, you don't understand. I did it for you, for Sophie. You were fragile, broken after Dad. Fragile. My laugh was sharp as shattered glass. Diners at nearby tables turned. Caleb lowered his voice, pleading. I was protecting you. If you'd known about Evelyn, about the policy, it would have destroyed you. I leaned back, folding my hands. No, Caleb. What destroyed me was realizing my son forged documents and stole from me in my weakest hour. He swallowed hard, sweat glistening on his forehead. Please, we can fix this. I'll make it right. I shook my head. You're already too late. Robert filed charges this morning. Insurance fraud, elder abuse, theft by deception. By tonight, you'll be answering to the state of Colorado, not me. The blood drained from his face completely. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, went pale. It's Vanessa. She says police are at the house. I sipped my tea, savoring the cold sweetness. Then it seems justice runs on time. The next day, news anchors' voices filled my living room. Local insurance agent arrested for fraud and elder abuse. Caleb Ellis accused of stealing over $300,000 from his widowed mother. Later, Sophie called, her voice small. "Grandma, is Daddy a bad man?" I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "No, sweetheart. Your daddy made very bad choices. And now he has to face the consequences." Her sniffle reached through the line. "Are you mad at him?" I felt my heart ache and soften. "I'm sad, Sophie, but no matter what, I'll always love him, because he gave me you." 3 months later, the courthouse was hushed as Caleb stood before the judge, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. To avoid trial, he accepted a plea deal, 2 years in minimum security and restitution of $750,000, with interest. The gavel fell, and with it, the last illusion that my son was untouchable. Vanessa sat in the back row, tears streaking her cheeks. She had already sold their oversized house and moved with Sophie into a small apartment above a bakery. She found work kneading dough and ringing up customers, her hands finally busy with more than polished nails and credit card bills. She avoided my eyes, but when she left the courtroom, holding Sophie's hand, I noticed something new in her: humility. As for me, I began again. I rented a sunlit apartment in Boulder, not grand but mine. The windows overlooked a park where children laughed and old couples walked arm in arm. Each morning I brewed coffee, read the paper, and felt the quiet joy of freedom. I enrolled in watercolor classes at the community college, joined a circle of women who shared books and stories, and volunteered at the library's literacy program. At 68, I was no one's burden, no one's ATM, no one's silent maid. I was simply Margaret Ellis, living on my own terms. Every weekend, Sophie came to stay. We swam in the apartment pool, baked cookies, and worked on her school projects spread across my kitchen table. She blossomed in the safety of those visits, learning lessons that went deeper than multiplication tables, lessons about honesty, boundaries, and resilience. Sometimes she asked about her father, and I answered gently, "He made mistakes, but he's learning. One day you'll see him with new eyes." The night Caleb was released, my phone rang. His voice was rough with shame. "Mom, it's me. I know I don't deserve it, but could we start over?" I looked out the window at the dusky sky, where the last streaks of sunlight painted the Rockies gold. My heart held both ache and tenderness. "Yes," I said slowly, "but this time it will be on my terms. Some stories end with broken ties, others end with forgiveness. Mine ended with both justice and the fragile thread of reconciliation." The lesson, I realized, was simple but hard-earned. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. It is strength. Love without boundaries becomes exploitation. But love with truth and respect becomes freedom. And freedom, once reclaimed, is a gift no one can steal again. In the end, my journey was not just about money or papers signed in an office. It was about reclaiming my dignity after years of being treated like a shadow in my own family. Caleb and Vanessa thought they could measure my worth in dollars, in chores, in silence, but they forgot that strength grows in quiet places. Sophie's innocent whisper reminded me that courage often begins with protecting those who cannot yet protect themselves. I learned that love is not blind obedience, and forgiveness is not permission to be harmed again. It is possible to forgive while still demanding accountability. Boundaries are not walls that shut people out. They are doors that open only to those who bring respect. The true inheritance we leave behind is not wealth, but wisdom. Never let anyone convince you that your voice, your choices, or your life no longer matter.